pranayam shatena va. By practice of vichar upon the rational insight given by the wise for the good of the aspirant, the Sanskrit word hitokti, ukti, words given by sages, hit for the good. They didn't spoke things for any other reason than to do good to people. One gains the conviction of the truth. So having listened to the words of the sages, to practice vichar, reflect, inquire. As a result, your intellect develops clarity and you have a conviction. You don't go on saying, oh, I believe, since you are a great person, whatever you are saying, it's okay. That's one stage. Many things you should believe what others say. All the guidance that is given for japa, for meditation, for choosing your Ishtadevata, mantras, for all sadhana, you have to listen to people who are more experienced. And while listening, there is no role of unnecessary debate. That you say Krishna is holding the flute like this, but I say no, his hand should be a little different. There's a role of faith. You follow the guidance Guru has given you. Guidance for satsanga, for practice of pranayam, for all those sadhanas. But when it comes to understanding, they're subjective. Someone has prepared all the food and you suddenly say, I don't want to put my mouth into trouble. You do it for me. That will be ridiculous. Not a single grain of that food will be assimilated by you unless you eat it. So that applies to Vedantic teaching. See, scriptural teachings in India have two broad divisions. One is what orthodoxically known as religious. It's just sages have brought out certain tradition and you have faith. There also you have choice. You don't have to follow those who follow Lord Shiva as the highest. They are fine. Those who follow Krishna as the highest, you choose that. There again you have a certain choice. But having chosen, you follow the traditional process that you have been given. And faith there plays all that part. Faith, devotion, sustained practice. Even that leads you to your own instinct. Suppose you are practicing meditation, certain experience arises. In the beginning you may be confused, you need guidance. But if you have a greater maturity, you will automatically know that this is the positive. You have been suffering from a headache and headache has gone. You don't look at others for verification. It's instinctive. It's much in the same way, many things open up within you in an instinctive way. God is working through your own instinct. As a result of upasana, your mind becomes more and more purified. Now, one step higher, there operates your intellect. There is a role of the function of pure reasoning. In a devotee, a person may be devotional all through. This becomes automatic. Reason begins to operate, but the devotee does not highlight it. But when you hear their words, like the statement, Lali mere lal ki jit dekhaun tit lal, Lali mein dekhan main chali, main bhi ho gayi lal. See, I went out to see the beauty of my beloved, and I became bewildered. Everywhere was beloved. And until bewilderment went away, even I became. The function of intellect. Intellect becomes intuitional. So Vedantic Advaita entered into it automatically. Both movements, Bhakti movement, Advaita movement, they are two aspects of the same. Therefore, blending the two is perfectly healthy and more secure process. Now, by practice of vichar, you inquire, reflect upon the insight given by the wise that relates to the scriptures of Vedanta. As you go on listening to it, there also you must realize the sages gave sufficient time for disciples to practice karma yoga along with listening to satsanga. Therefore you have the Upanishads to open up with the story that disciples went to the Guru. They said they had already studied the Vedas, they want to have Brahma Gyan, the knowledge of Brahman. And the Guru said, wonderful, stay in the ashram. A year later come to me. If I know it, I will tell you. Doesn't give any guarantee. The implication is not that they are just waiting for one whole year. It is daily they are enjoying the satsang. Daily they are listening to the teachings of Upanishads, Veda, different scriptures. And daily they are reflecting. So until their mind becomes highly advanced, then the Guru gives a concise, more precise direction. On the other hand, the same teaching that you have heard again and again develops a special state. It becomes, what was hidden opens up. What was dormant wakes up. To give you just some idea, if you go on hearing in Vedanta, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. You may sit back and say, yeah, I know it very well. But your knowledge is sleeping. If you have really awakened knowledge, it's like fire. You see the difference between a wonderful painting of blazing fire and the other one, very ugly. But a real spark in it. Put a finger, it burns. So that one is awakened. So Aham Brahmasmi can be awakened in you even if it is at ordinary level. And that plays a tremendous role. So that two stages have to be understood well. One is paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. For that your intellect has to be acute. And you go on listening it. And it is more bookish knowledge. But along with it, you are initiated into practice of listening, reflection, meditation, and how to conduct your life on that, holding that ideal before you. So there comes a state of purity in your heart when you listen to the same, but just like in a temple, bell rings, and then 1,000 bells ring. It rings suddenly in your deeper level. And it goes on ringing until it rings your neck. The neck of the ego. This state of purity of intellect that enables you to attain that knowledge in a direct way, not paroksha, not indirect. It's something that goes into your bloodstream, speaking in a figurative way, something that goes into your heart, fires up your whole nervous system. Try to think of a theoretical knowledge of a person who reads in a book, somebody was poor like him, suddenly he became fortunate. And he has boundless wealth came to him just by luck. Try to watch your mind, what happens by reading that. And then there come certain papers, maybe through the website, which says you have inherited not that much money, but at least 10 million or so. And then you just try to think of what happens to you now. One is indirect knowledge. Somebody attained something, you are imagining how happy he might be. Another is you are actually yourself, you are gaining it. You don't have room for imagination. Simple point to understand that Atma-Gyan, knowledge of Brahman, is a revelation. Just like in a cinema show. Screen is always the reality behind the projections. As long as you are involved with the story that is created by projections, you ignore the screen. But you know that the screen has been the reality. While all projections have come and gone, they have no value. You have projections of fire, projections of torrential rains, lightning and thunder. Your ears may be getting broken up. The screen remains just the same. Much in the same way, the self in you, the real I am, is like the screen. Mind is constantly projecting continuity of frames of pictures, projections. Each projection implies a world of time, space, causation. Just like in a cinema show also. Each time you are having a three-dimensional view. And the divine cinema is much more advanced. You need to understand that if you are watching the show, looking for the screen, you will never find it. The screen is not a projection, it is a supporter of the projection. If your mind is caught by the illusions created by the thought waves, you may gain extraordinary experiences in the world, fame, name, glory, power, but you will not gain Brahman, because Brahman is not among the moving pictures. Brahman is not an object of your thought wave. Brahman is the underlying reality. Therefore, it is easy to understand that even if you were to stay seated in a cinema hall, and even if the cinema has to continue for years and years in one stretch, you will not see the screen. Unless you have a special way of detaching or ignoring the pictures, knowing that they are unreal, your vision will step beyond the moving pictures, and the screen has been always the reality. This I'm trying to give you the idea of revelation, what it means by revelation. Brahman is not something you are going to acquire in life. The reality of life and the purpose of life in general is to achieve something in a world of time and space. Do something. Acquire something. But that is, if you have spiritual insight, this becomes secondary. Because all that you can acquire in this world, no matter how fortunate you are, all that you acquire is asat, moving pictures, illusions. Anityam asukham lokam. The world is anityam, constantly changing. How can you build up something on the basis of shifting sands? All your experiences are just shifting, moment after moment. Thought waves of your mind cannot hold Brahman within it. But when intuitive knowledge dawns, it is like as if even though the show goes on, somehow a window opens up and a flood of light comes in. So while you are seeing the show, suddenly you see the show pale off and there is nothing but the screen. And by the time the whole show comes back again. So in the presence of intuitional illumination, your involvement in the world gradually weakens because the show is not as real as you thought it to be. Again, coming back, no matter how many karmas, projects you have, how many pilgrimage centers you have visited, taken a bath, no matter how many hundreds of pranayams you have done, thereby Shankaracharya is saying, using all other things you know in Hatha Yoga. No matter how long you stay in Shirsasana, for how many years you have been practicing Sarvangasana, or for millions of years practicing Surya Namaskar. That doesn't mean that we are looking down upon these exercises, these sadhana. It's not being looked down upon. But the idea that all this will produce liberation, there comes mathematical understanding. All this, they cannot produce liberation. The clouds can be wonderful, but all the clouds put together cannot excel the sky. There are countless colors in this world, dazzling colors. All of them put together cannot excel the sun. If you think, well, may not be in 1 year or so. Suppose you go on collecting all expressions of color for 1,000,000 years at least, that must be equal to the sun. Mathematically speaking, impossible. So this is a mathematical statement. A statement not meant to discourage you from doing sadhana, but making you understand, do sadhana so that you can do karma yoga, so that you can have purity of heart. But once you have purity of heart, another stage enters within you, subtle inquiry and parabhakti and higher devotion. Without that, all other things you are doing, you can go on doing for millions of embodiments, and you can't have that. अधिकारिणम आशास्ते फल सिद्धिर विशेषतः उपायादेश कालाद्याः सन्त्यस्मिन् सहकारिणः. Success in attaining Atma-Gyan, realization of the self, depends upon the qualification of the aspirant. Time, space, etc. are merely auxiliary in this regard. Idea comes in the mind, I want to focus my attention, total attention on attaining Atma-Gyan. But now next idea comes to your mind, where should I go? Now you search through the modern equipment, computer, get experiences and opinions of people, which place is the best suited to ignite intuition into the mind. Shankaracharya said that's auxiliary, that doesn't matter. All that is arranged by God according to your karmas. Whatever time and place it becomes real for you, practical for you, you can attain Atma-Gyan. Atma-Gyan is not dependent that you will have better Atma-Gyan when there is always spring, or in a tropical country there is always temperate weather, or things of that nature. Ashtavakra attained Atma-Gyan even though he has 8 bends in his body. Some attain Atma-Gyan in forest, some attain even in a palace. So these are auxiliaries based on karmas of the individual, and you are not restricted. You are not restricted by time, space. You are only restricted by your own intellect. Ato vichara kartavyo jignaso ratmavastunah sama sadhyadaya sindhum gurum brahma viduttamam. Therefore an inquirer after Atman, that is to say, one who wants to attain self-realization, he should duly approach a guru. Due term has been used so that you don't abruptly go to a guru and say, oh, just give me enlightenment, a very short time. And there is a parable is told about it. A disciple goes to the guru and he says, "O Guru, you are compassionate, and isn't it possible for you to transmit liberation?" Instead of making me go through the same red tapes through. When he saw the Guru was not speaking much, he began to highlight how things have changed. Progress in every field of life. Things that were done few years back in a long time, and now simply push some buttons and all the information is there. So what about liberation? Shouldn't there be some change in the mode or the process of attaining liberation? The Guru said, "It's a wonderful idea. I would like to hear more about it. Invite me for a for a dinner. I will come to be at your home at certain time, and we will have wonderful chat." The disciple was very pleased. He made best of foods. When the Guru came, that Guru, being the old style, he brought his own bowl, begging bowl, and he placed it on a very beautiful rug and most wonderful setup of things. And the disciple was very happy, and he just brought a vessel of wonderful food. But before he could put it, he looked into the vessel. He said, "Guru, please, the vessel smelt." Awful smell. "Let me wash it. It will be a shame to put that food into that." The Guru said, "What you made was a perishable food, and you won't give that because the vessel is dirty. Don't you realize this is a modern time? You should have expedited it." You think the greatest of things, the nectar of the scriptures, I should put it into a vessel like mine, all smelly. So therefore you need to purify your heart. Your vessel has to be purified. Then knowledge will come into it. And it will come into it as easily as you are serving the food. But if it is not well purified, knowledge cannot be given. The moral of this story is that just like for eating good food you need the vessel to be pure, your mind is the vessel to receive the knowledge of the self. Your mind must be free of mala, vikshepa, avarana. Mala is malos, the anger, hate, greed, etc. vikshepa, lots of distractions, muddy. Avarana, it's more darkness over it. Unless you deal with these in a correct way and allow the mind to become pure. Once you have done it, a pure lake doesn't have to even ask the sky, now I am pure, come down. It reflects in it. The moment your mind has clarity, Brahman, the self, is the reality, reveals through your mind. So, therefore, duly approaching the Guru means you have developed qualifications, not to the high degree. If you develop to a high degree, then you are enlightened. But you are going to go on developing it degree by degrees. You become sincerely devoted to the promotion of those great qualities. And go to the Guru, and the Guru is defined, he who is the best of the knowers of Brahman. Of course, that you can't determine, but this, again, this is a philosophical writing like mathematics. This is the way. If you want to look for infinity, go to infinity. And an ocean of mercy. You may be in other words, Guru may be questionable. But when we are approaching Guru, Guru is the medium of Brahman. And therefore, there is the ocean of mercy surging within the heart of Guru. That's the potentiality behind Guru, disciple, behind all the teachings. In the divine plan, there is God's mercy is behind. All that you need to do is to knock off some of the obstructions. If you are sleeping in a house all dark and outside the sun has risen, the rising sun is compassionate, ever waiting. All that you need to do, knock off one of the windows, open up some door. In brief, in ordinary business, you go to a boss, you are never sure how much you can be benefited by the boss. But here you are perfectly guaranteed. You are moving towards the ocean. And ocean doesn't count how much. In other words, you are not dealing with quantitative attainments. So there comes the role of faith. Faith in your heart that you are approaching a Guru, through whom God, who is the ocean of mercy, will reach out to you. Medhavi purusho vidwan uha poha vivichakshana adhikaryatma vidyayam mukta lakshana lakshitah. He, the Medhavi, Vidwan, is Adhikari, the qualified person for Atma Vidya. Medhavi means one who has pure intellect. Vidwan, one who is devoted to knowledge of Atman, knowledge of Brahman, knowing which all is known. The Upanishad gives a definition of it. What is that knowledge, attaining which you know all that is to be known? And the answer is Atman, the self. And such a disciple who is medhavi, vidwan, who is especially skilled in ascertaining the right meaning of the scriptural teachings, that skill has to develop in an aspirant by uha-poha. The Sanskrit word uha-poha means discussing in your mind trying to understand arguments in favor, arguments that are not in favor, and thereby determining what is the right meaning of the scripture. Every time you listen to some talk, your mind does uha-poha. Every time someone gives you a precious metal and says it is gold, you hold it, but don't believe in the person who is uha-poha. You turn around, look this way, look that way. And scriptures help you. If you read Vedantic scriptures, on one side they create a drama. Purva Pakshin. Purva Pakshin are the people who don't understand, they are giving wrong view of the scripture. The wrong view is presented. And then Uttara Pakshin, the person who has mature knowledge, he deals with that argument presented by the immature mind and shows how that way of thinking is wrong. And so thereby allows your mind to grasp what is real. Say for example, I'm dramatizing it. Someone is being told that during the spring season, cuckoo bird sends out melodious note. The man says, how does he look like? He's black. Well, he says, oh, I have seen that cuckoo. Not that so many of them come to my house. But then the person says, well, did you hear the voice? Yeah, voice was there, but it was like crows. He said, no, simply because it looks like it is not the cuckoo. It has to have a melodious tone. I'm dramatizing this. Similarly, everything is discussed. Which is Brahman? Can the body be Brahman? Can prana be Brahman? Different views of philosophers that in the ultimate end there are two things, Brahman and nature, Prakriti. Then the guru or the teacher says, well, if you say two things, how can that Brahman, who is at the mercy of Prakriti he can't change, it's already there, how can he be considered all-powerful, omniscient, the absolute? Then you can say, well, no. There are two infinities. Brahman is infinity and Prakriti is infinity. Mathematically it's wrong. Two infinities can't exist together. So these arguments are meant to give you a rational knowledge. And that's an exercise for the intellect. And it improves your devotion. It improves your understanding of bhakti. Otherwise you think God is poor man who is constantly controlled by Prakriti, and then he has so many devis, you see. But when you have little more of intellect involved in it, then you realize that you are speaking the glory of God in so many ways. By describing his role as Devi, describing his role as Maya. The non-dual self is the ultimate reality. Arguments are necessary to lead an aspirant to reach that. Otherwise, there is a confusion in the mind. Shouldn't I follow some cult that says in the end you don't all mix into non-duality, but there is always God before you. And there is always festivity going on day by day. Lots of that do's. Anyway, I will not go into that detail. Now comes to serious point. Vivekino viraktasya shamadi gunashalina mumukshoreva hi brahma jigyasa yogyata mata. He who is mumukshu means one who is desirous for liberation, one who aspires for liberation. He is qualified for inquiring into Brahman when he is equipped with Viveka, Vairagya, Shat Sampat and other qualities. This is termed as Sadhana Chatushtaya, the fourfold means. Vivek means discriminative reason. Intellect is so subtle and purified that to separate the self from the not self. You don't have hard time to understand the body is not the self. For majority of people it is very hard. They cannot separate the real me from the body. The masses, millions and all over the world, the body is the end of their existence. With the body they came to exist. With the end of the body, finished. Within this time, whatever you gain, and whatever you do. In the end, now it's just matter of spiritual belief. You can go on living with God nicely or cooking in hell forever. This is very spirituality or religion at the mass level, which has no rationality behind it. But when reason begins to play its part, now you have to work for developing 4 great qualifications. First is called Vivek, discriminative reason. A reason, an intellect that separates real from unreal. It's portrayed by swan, a mystical symbol. Milk and water mixed together, presented before a swan. Swan will drink the milk, leave the water behind. It's a simile, so don't go on biologically looking for it. Next is vairagya. As you go on discovering that you are not the body, the pranas, the mind, the senses, as you go on discovering it, you should become detached from these layers. You should not hold on to things that you know they are not real. While dreaming, suddenly it dawns upon you that you are dreaming. The world around you is dream. And even though you have picked up a whole bag of gold coins, you are not going to carry even a single one. Once you know that, and you know the majesty of waking up is more than all the golden coins, so immediately there comes in your mind detachment. When can I let all this go and wake up? So vairagya refers to that. And it is promoted in degrees. As your mind becomes accustomed to a higher quality of joy, then it turns away from lesser, grosser things that used to give so much happiness. The mind turns away from that. Until mind is presented with the highest bliss, and the entire world and all its attainments becomes little. Vairagya develops. It develops in degrees. Viveka and Vairagya, they are powerful qualities. Then comes Shat Sampat, sixfold qualities. Shama, serenity of mind. All this we will define more. Dhamma, control of senses. Uparati, not to be drawn to fruits of karma. Uparati is a form of detachment. Detachment from fruits of karma. The fruits of karma are in the world of illusion. Titiksha. Since all this is your great project in your life, so do not be like a monkey constantly shaking. No pun intended. Do not keep your mind fickle. Develop endurance. Endurance, physical endurance can be developed to a certain degree, but a greater endurance has to come in your mind. If you don't endure, then you'll always go on running. The moment there is something that you can't bear with, then I will go elsewhere. The world is very big. And no matter where you go, there will be always. God is very clever. So unless you develop certain degree of endurance, you cannot have stability. Then there is Shraddha, faith. It's a wondrous quality. And Samadhan. You don't be fooled by your mind. Your mind goes on interpreting the world according to its own limitations. The world at its core and in its totality is an expression of God. So it is not the error in the world or the defects of the world that is distressing your mind, but it is some muck that is in the unconscious that is causing it, that doesn't allow you to enjoy the opportunities God has given to you. If you calmly watch people who constantly complain, no matter how things happen. All the time, opportunity flows to them day by day, like a river flowing. The mind is not accepting it. Unless somehow the river has to work like a jerk, moves up, dazzles your eye or so. I have been graced by the Ganges river. As mind becomes more and more sattvic, you are not looking at in the world and expecting things in a jerky movement, but to learn from the spring breeze, blows softly. You live graciously. Then you realize your movement is like a wondrous walk through a park. All that becomes possible through human mind. Circumstances go on changing as well, as your mind has a right way to move. All situations begin to change according to the positive direction of the mind. And you learn the art of wait, watch, and faith in you has given you guarantee that you are going to succeed. It is not a question of doubt. And samadhan, the last of the 6, not to have a mind that contradicts everything, but a mind that enjoys God's presence. The millions of things, even speaking from a human point of view, to give a sense of proportion, the millions of things that have been given to you by grace of God. A few little bugs have also come into it. It is up to you not to offset all the opportunity God has given to you because of little petty things clinging to your mind. Sometimes petty things have powerful. Even few little fingers put before your eyes can shut out the sun, no matter how great he is. The 3 fingers can shut him out. And with this we conclude. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.